I don't want to assume to know how you are feeling. And I come back to this every single time. It doesn't matter how long I train you. You are the one who will sense something before I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you're moving and it looks perfect to me. And then you go, oh yeah, my knee really hurt doing that. And I'm like,
yeah.
Why didn't you stop or tell me? And they're like, oh, I just pushed through it. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's talk about this. So it's, you know, so I completely agree and understand what you're saying. I don't want to put my lens on their experience because they may be similar. But at the end of the day, as I was saying, we're all different and unique, and we have things that we have in common that we share, but we are still our own individual, you know, living, breathing bodies.
Hey, I'm Hypermobile, and if you're listening to this, I'm guessing you might be too. Hi, my name is Alex, and I'm your Hypermobile host, and today we have on the incredible Karima Adi, longevity coach and CrossFit coach. Karima, I'm so excited to have you on today. We've known each other for 10 years?
Yeah, about 10 years.
I cannot believe how fast time goes by. We'll get into that in a second, but tell me just a bit about yourself to begin with. What do you help people with?
I help people move better without pain and discomfort, and just getting them to believe that they can do things that maybe they've been told that they can't anymore because of some health condition, or the big one is their age. But ultimately empowering people to move pain-free.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That speaks to my experience with you, because I have to say you have been my coach as well, and you've helped me in how I move and kind of my fitness journey. But if we take the clock back 10 years or so, I always knew there was something going on with me. We were talking before we started recording. You told me you knew there was something going on with you. We kind of didn't see each other for a few years, came back together, and hypermobility has been a part of both of our stories. So tell me a little bit about your personal experience with hypermobility, if you don't mind.
So I didn't actually know that that's what it was called. I just always knew that I was quite flexible, and people were always commenting on that. And when I first started working out in a CrossFit gym, I could get into positions that other newbies couldn't. And it was always like, oh my gosh, you're so flexible. It's great. But then I also had niggles that other people didn't. So it was a really interesting contradiction of terms, because I'm like, yes, I'm really flexible, but also sometimes I hurt when other people don't.
Can I ask you which positions you got into easily, or which things kind of like,
oh my God,
thinking back on what were the
an
signs?
overhead squat, never a problem.
Same.
Never a problem. You know, it was literally butt through the floor, great overhead position. Yeah.
Were you, go on.
No, go on.
Were you failing lifts by getting stuck in the bottom?
Initially.
Yeah. It's like the bottom of shame. So what I'm talking about here is when you do a squat, obviously your hips go down and then go up. And one of the things I see classically in people who are doing strength training, where they're doing some squats, and we'll talk about barbells and, you know, dumbbells and things later, but they will often be the people who will go down and just be stuck there. It is not glamorous. It does not feel good. And I hate failing lifts that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you were kind of doing some of the classic hypermobile person things in this situation. And then what happened from there?
Well, I thought I'd figured it out, because I would then, when I'd get stuck, I'd just bounce out of those places. But that seemed to cause more of an issue. So all of a sudden I would have like a painful hip, or my shoulders would feel really bad, or my neck would get really, really tight. And I never really quite understood why, because other people didn't seem to be suffering from the same sort of thing. And it wasn't really until I started nerding out about movement a little bit more, before I was even coaching, where I started to understand that it was more about the lack of stability versus mobility, because clearly I had the mobility. I just did not have the stability to be able to perform the movements with control. And so it's a bit of wrestling with the ego, really, because I wanted to lift heavy, but I couldn't stabilize. So it was this really odd thing of having to understand that my body just functioned a little bit differently. And I think it was you coming along with another osteopath who was like, well, yes, you're very flexible. It's because you're hypermobile. And that really just lit that bulb up for me. And I'm like, oh, that's what it's called. So I could Google something and I could look stuff up, and it really explained the things that I was feeling anyway. Because I'm quite intuitive. Sometimes I'll know something and I just don't know how to describe it. I don't know what it's about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are hypermobile get that feeling of feeling different, but not knowing what it is. And it's like, it's a really confusing place to be. I have to ask you as well, just because I'm curious, because we've never actually really talked about this before. Did you get any weird things? Like, I would have trouble with skipping, getting pain in my shoulders, or running. Was there anything that was really, really strange or didn't make sense to you at the time that would bother you? It can be any joint.
I would get just pains in my shoulders a lot. And sometimes from not even shoulder work.
Yeah.
So that was always a bit strange, because I would complain about my shoulders and other people just didn't have those issues. It's like, well, what did you do the last couple of days? What workouts did you do the last couple of days? I'm like, there's no reason my shoulders should be hurting. But somehow they just did a lot.
Yeah.
And then it would go up into my neck, and I would get these headaches that I remember saying to people, it feels like someone's cramping my brain, like someone's like just like digging into my brain, but it was all from the neck. And it wasn't really until I think when you started treating me, actually, that you were like, this is not in your brain, this is your neck. And just getting me to understand that even though it felt like it was in my brain, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think looking at peripheral nerve anatomy is really important. And I forgot to do a disclaimer. I have a tendency to do that. I should be doing it, by the way. This is not medical advice, okay? So please see your qualified healthcare provider who knows you and your unique medical history for that. Also, there could be swearing. I don't know. I feel like because I've said that, I'm now not going to swear, because I just like to be opposite and contrary. But who can say? Back to anatomy. So yeah, the dorsal scapular nerve. I'm just going to info dump for 1 second, okay? It is a nerve that runs from C456. And so that's in your neck, and it goes down between your shoulder blade and your spine. And when you start to think about anatomy and what's happening there, and what instability potentially from that shoulder blade joint, or lack of movement in the right way at the right time, it's really easy to see how sensitive structures can get stressed and potentially contribute to pain elsewhere. I don't know if you could kind of feel those headaches coming on. Often patients will get a bit of a prodrome. So symptom. Yeah. So we had very similar experience in that.
Yeah.
I have to say too, as well, going back to what you said about how things just like the pain kind of didn't make sense. I was visiting my brother in Canada. You've never met my brother, but we are extremely close and quite similar in many ways. But he's not hypermobile, which baffles. I'm always just trying to check him out. He's like, stop assessing me. And I'm like, you have to be hypermobile. Like, we're so close. We talk like an hour every day. And for you to not be hypermobile, it really just confuses me. But I had a talk with him for the millionth time. And I was like, George, just checking, just to make sure I understand this, even though we've talked about it before. And I said, George, like, did you ever have pain where where like you would just have agony and your knees would be aching as a child, or your neck or your shoulders, or stuff where it didn't make sense, like what you and I were talking about? Yeah. And he said this, and like my jaw hit the floor. He said, Alex, I have never experienced pain without a reasonable cause and effect, which is the most he's a mathematician, by the way, but most mathematician answer ever. But I just like, that keeps me up at night.
Good for you, George. Good for you.
He is definitely, a very different experience from us, shall we say. He just sits at a desk, doesn't get injured, and just lives his best life, and it's good for him. I know. Yeah. He's incredible. Yeah. But back to you. So you were going on your journey. You were doing some fitness stuff, some strength training and other stuff in there, and you were getting pain. What happened next? Because you told me the story a little bit at the workshop we did together. Karima did a workshop with me. It was fabulous. We'll do part 2 eventually. But what happened from there?
Well, in order to go forward, I actually need to go back a few years, because my whole story into movement and starting to understand my body more actually started 15 years ago. So way before I stepped foot into a CrossFit gym at all. I had weird symptoms, like hormonally and stuff, and they didn't really quite make sense. And it took about a year to get the diagnoses after an MRI, and they found a brain tumor, like a little prolactinoma. And that was ultimately the culprit of why I was feeling so strange and why my hormones were all over the shop. And they're like, oh, it might be like pregnancy or PCOS or whatever. And they were just throwing all these terms at me. But it eventually turned out to be this prolactinoma, which is effectively a benign brain tumor. And I was put on a load of medication. And normally in the medication leaflet, you have like possible side effects. And there's like a laundry list of things. And most people will experience one or two. And I started to get the entire whack of them. And part of that is like that you'll experience some pain in different parts of the body. So I was just kind of miserable all the time, which led me into osteopathy actually, because I'd gone to various different health professionals and nobody could quite pinpoint why I was in so much pain. They're like, your prolactinoma should have no impact on the rest of your body. Your medication shouldn't really impact anything. But it did, and I used to go to the gym, like sort of casually. I'd spend time on the treadmill and whatnot, but I wouldn't do any strength training. I didn't really know that much about strength training just because, you'd look into the strength section of the gym and it would just all be dudes. And it didn't feel like I was welcome there either. And I didn't really know enough. And it wasn't until my 6th or 7th osteopath session where I'm like, I just can't keep doing this. I think, and not to scare anybody, but it's like I never understood the notion of not wanting to live.
Yeah.
And I think in those moments where I was experiencing so much pain, I kind of understood that sometimes you're in so much pain and just not being alive would be better.
Yeah.
Not that I would ever dare to do anything to hurt myself, but it was just this moment where I'm like, I cannot go on. And I think that was the pivotal moment when I was crying on the table with my osteopath and I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, you need to find something to strengthen your body.
Yep.
Because right now it's in like panic mode and you need to find something, because he's like, you can keep coming every week and giving me your money and I will make it a little bit better, but ultimately it's not going to go away. So I'm like, okay. And I'm very practical. So I'm like, okay, let's just find a bunch of things. Going to the gym by myself was boring. So I'm like, I'm going to just try and do different things. And I tried a bunch of things. And eventually CrossFit was starting to sort of be around more. I would hear about it and the barbell felt really scary to me. So I was like, I don't know. And then I went to a CrossFit gym and I had a really bad experience with somebody who just wasn't very personable and couldn't quite understand that I was coming from a really painful place. So I was like, well, I guess this is not for me. And then it took me about 18 months to feel courageous enough to step foot into another gym. And it was such a different experience. The person I spoke to just was just a soft landing. They were just really reassuring and they were like, don't worry, our coaches are great, they're going to take care of you. And the first foundation class I did, there were 7 foundation classes at the time. I think it was like a deadlift class. It was like the first time I'd ever touched a barbell. And it was this pivotal moment where the coach was like, oh, you're built really well for a weightlifter. 5'2", short limbs, long torso, and like you can get into the positions really well. Mm-hmm. And something just clicked in my head. I'm like, this is it. And I just knew it. And even though it was uncomfortable and I was still hurting, I just persisted. And I did the 7 intro classes. And the same coaches who do the foundation classes did the main classes. So by the time I started the main classes, they already knew me, and they already knew that I was struggling with some other things than the average 30-year-old at the time. And it just changed my life. And it was barbell workouts specifically that I kind of just took to, because I also noticed that if I did a workout that had kipping pull-ups, for example, my shoulders didn't like it. So this is where I started to get an inkling of, hang on a second, I did all this strict work first, because there was a rule back in the day at our gym that you had to have 5 strict pull-ups before you were allowed to do any kind of kip swings. So I had built up the musculature I needed and to be safe, but every time I did any kind of kipping movements, it hurt. So this is where then we start that part of the story where you started at, where I just noticed that things were not quite right. But simultaneously, I had to go for blood tests every 3 months to monitor the tumor, and my bloods just kept getting better and better. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just being active, and I'm working out, and I'm making sure I know what I'm putting in my body. So if there's something that has a label that has 18 ingredients that I cannot pronounce, maybe I don't have that, and it just kept getting better. And I said, right, I'm going to dial down the dose of the medication, because the side effects were still there. Some of the severe paranoia, thoughts that didn't feel like my own thoughts. So I'm like, I'm not gonna take as much. And they're like, well, but the tumor's so bad. And I'm like, I don't care. My bloods are clearly getting better. You can't make me take the bigger dose. So I'm just gonna lower the dose. And I did, and my bloods kept getting better. And I started with 1 CrossFit session a week to 2 to 3 to 4, but I would be quite selective. I would always want to do the ones that had a barbell in it.
I'm not surprised.
Absolutely loved it. And they were like, well, you're now on the smallest dose of the meds, which is like, I have to cut this tablet with like the sharpest knife, because it barely registers otherwise as a tablet now, because it's just powder. And they're like, well, clearly everything's still okay. So okay. And then they changed it from seeing them every 3 months to every 6 months. And for the last 9 years, I want to say, I have to see them once a year. I noticed that, or I now know that when high stress situations will prompt things to look worse again, because the body responds accordingly. So managing my mindset and my stress levels is really important as well, because otherwise I would just have to increase the meds again. But having said that, they did an MRI 5 years ago and they couldn't even find the tumor anymore. So they're like, amazing. Considering that they started with, you're just going to up the meds over the course of your life and you'll likely end up in a wheelchair, to, oh, we can't even find the thing anymore. It's pretty incredible.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. Your story touches on so many things. So the mental health aspect of fitness, I have to say, most of the patients I see, so the fact like 99% plus probably are hypermobile these days. I still see people who have complex chronic or treatment resistant injuries who are not hypermobile, but the vast majority obviously are. There is a big overlap, and although this applies to everyone, I do see a big overlap with people who are neurodivergent and hypermobile, because it's there. We know from research, especially with ADHD and HEDS and HSD, it's very prevalent. And a lot of people will kind of manage their mental health, or one of the ways that they affect their mental health positively is through exercise. And you've seen that be true for me. I think it's also knowing you've been true for you as well.
It's true for me too, yeah.
And that place of darkness, and I think you spoke about it in such a nuanced and thoughtful way about, not having active ideation, but just feeling so broken and so down and so lost and alone. And just the weight gets heavy sometimes, like it gets so heavy. And for a lot of people, like exercise can kind of be that thing that just keeps them ticking over, you know, gives you a reason to leave the house or get up out of bed or just do something. And I think it's just, I think one of the key things that you, I know, have helped some of the patients I've referred to as well, because we do work collaboratively. Sometimes we'll talk on that later. And one of the things you helped me with back when I was going through quite a difficult time was just having something to do that gave me a way that I could feel something in my body that wasn't pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a crier. Anyways, I'm surprised we got through recording a few episodes before this happened. Anyways, Karima, you also touched on when you first started CrossFit. And again, you know, for you it was CrossFit. For other people, it'll be something else. I think it's about finding your thing.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that later. But you were doing these classes and you felt some things, you know, some pain. I sometimes say my body's talking to me if I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
I have to ask you a question. Did you have the foresight or knowledge to find ways to kind of not push through that, or did you kind of just push through it and then deal with the consequences later and learn from that? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It's okay, we all make
And
mistakes.
sadly, it's the latter. I pushed through because I really, even though the reason I started it and got into it was because I was in pain, the better I felt, the more my unbeknownst to me, little competitive part in me was like, oh, you could like compete, you know, at like a very low level, but still like the in-house competitions, or when we did competitions against other gyms. And, you know, I really noticed that I do have that competitive element within me. And so I would just push through because I just didn't want to accept that there was, quote unquote, yet another thing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to be a normal CrossFitter that didn't have to monitor things that were just, you know, it's like, just let me do the thing and do it like everybody else.
I get that.
But then I just couldn't keep pushing through. So even though within the first year, my osteopath effectively fired me because he's like, you don't need me anymore. You're not in pain anymore. I kind of had to go back to him because I was now struggling with some of the CrossFit induced things where I didn't listen. So when my body started talking to me, I would just try and shut it up and be like, I'm just going to get through this workout, versus what I would do now and what I have done really for the last, I want to say 5-6 years, where even if I do a class, I am almost hyper vigilant about what my body's telling me. So if everything feels fine, great, but that doesn't mean I check out and then I come back into my body at the end of the workout to see how I'm doing. I'm there, present in my body the whole time. It's not about letting my mind wander and be distracted. It's about making sure that each rep feels as good as it can. And then if it doesn't, I stop. I analyze. I am no longer interested in being competitive with anybody. It's just about, can I come in and do this workout? And yes, I'll be sore tomorrow, but I'm not injuring myself. I'm not causing any damage that may last. Because no workout is worth it. I'm not a competitive athlete. I'm not, you know, an Olympic athlete. Like, I'm not somebody whose career depends on a performance, a workout. So for me, it's a love of movement. That's why I do it, and because it makes me feel good physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it's just about being fully aware of what's happening.
I call that being kind to your body. You know, when I talk with my patients and when I talk with myself, I think like, am I being kind to little Alex? Is this what she needs today? No, there's something else you touched on as well. Oh, another concept I like to talk about is being your own coach. So, you know, I got to work with some quite high level competitive athletes, professional athletes. And when you work in that type of environment, their coach is on them like white on rice. Like they are supervising. They're like, oh, you looked a little bit off there. Are you feeling okay? There's this really nurturing and collaborative relationship that top coaches and top professional athletes who have a good coaching relationship will have. And it really made me think about being my own coach. And I think that's something which is critical, especially if your body's a little bit different, because the best coach in the world or the best PT or whatever, they're not going to know what you're feeling. but it's such a hard skill. I have to say, I found it hard to develop. Did you have a hard time learning it?
No, simply because the hypervigilance has kind of always been there, but I've ignored it most of the time. But since not shutting it up, it's actually really easy to hear. So I just had to allow that voice to speak versus just telling it to shut up and then cranking up the music in my headphones to sort of drown it out. That's been a thing. And sometimes, I mean, even now, you know, even last week, I went into a workout and my buddy was like, my right shoulder was just like, eh. And I was like, shh. And then I was like, no, hang on a second. If you do this, then it's just going to make things worse tomorrow. And I had to stop and I had to modify. And that was, you know, I was a bit like, but it was fine. Because I knew it was the right decision in the moment.
No, absolutely. I think if you see someone talking to their joint in a class, there's like a 99% chance.
It's you.
It's me. No, I like the question too. Like, is it worth it? That's what I'll be like, you know, I'll feel something in a class that I'm going to or a session I'm doing. And I'm like, is it worth it? Like, is this the workout I really want to get this injury on? Yeah. Most of the time it's no. Yeah. I would say so it should be all the time. But sometimes I do things. Anyways, in terms of your journey, so you fell in love with the barbell.
I did.
I was thinking of calling this episode Saved by the Barbell, but we'll see. Maybe that. Episode naming, it takes time and, you know, artistry. But you were saved by the barbell, and then you've kind of grown from there further. Like, you know, you helped me. Tell me a little bit about what you know, how that has affected your journey and how you've kind of grown from that. Well,
it's been interesting because when I got diagnosed and when I started CrossFit, I wasn't working as a coach. I had a very different career. I had a desk job in publishing, and this whole foray into coaching and into especially the competitive element of CrossFit made me realize that whilst I was working out and trying to get as many reps in a workout or whatever to beat the person next to me, I was watching everyone else in the workout and noticing little things that they could have been doing better. So where they could be more efficient, or where they, you know, where they were catching a weight in a certain way that was going to impact their joints in a negative way. And I would just see that and it would slow me down. And over time, I realized I didn't care so much about my performance anymore. And that was a really gradual process. And I started volunteering to judge other people in competitions. And I don't know, for most of you, you might not know this, but when you're judging somebody in a competition, you're not coaching them. You're supposed to just count their reps and tell them when they're not doing a legitimate repetition. And I would start coaching them and telling them what they could be doing better in a very nice way. And I realized that I got so much enjoyment from that, from helping someone else do better. And that was in a competitive environment.
That's okay. He's tired.
Wants to have a laugh.
Thanks, Zach. We need to get him a couch one day. Sorry, you were talking about coaching people.
It's but that gave me an inkling into what I might be good at. So the whole experience that led me into it, that at the time I thought was the worst thing in the world, my diagnoses, in fact, led me into what I now consider to be my major purpose, and that is helping other people understand the capacity of their own bodies through not just their physical self, but also through their mindset. So the way that they approach their workouts, the way that what they say to themselves, like you were saying, you know, talking to your joint. I think that is fair, because what you are saying to yourself is really important. If you go into a workout and you are constantly putting yourself down, and people joke when I say this, but your body hears you. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You keep telling yourself you're crap or your body doesn't work or whatever, it will respond accordingly. So I can't erase my hypermobility, and I wouldn't want to at this point. But telling myself I'm terrible because I'm hypermobile really doesn't help me.
Yeah.
So it's meeting yourself where you're at, understanding that focusing on all the things that you don't like or you'd rather have isn't going to be useful. And then focusing on the things that you can control and can do, which really matters.
No, absolutely. I've always found as someone who, you know, has known you in a coaching capacity that you have really helped me just like see what am I bringing to the table today. And just being okay with that. I think I think for people who are hypermobile, often there's this idea of feeling like you're too weak or too sensitive. And again, some of it, yes, is self-inflicted, but it's also inflicted sometimes by maybe coaches or personal trainers or people who are in that environment. Like you said, maybe even early on with people who don't understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
And it makes you so small. And for me, I have to say, when it came to being exposed to CrossFit, again, to be clear, I'm not telling everyone to do CrossFit. There are different ways to train.
Absolutely.
I call it Alex Fit because I just do what makes me happy at this point. But I was able to find little things and little movements that gave me this huge feeling of success. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I just did my first front squat or something new. When it comes to novelty, because I know you work with people in different age demographics. So I do, you know, you have seen patients of mine in their 30s or 20s or whatever, but I know you also work with patients, especially those kind of 60 plus, 75 plus, maybe 90 plus. You're doing all those ages. How important to you is novelty and that idea of kind of constantly learning? And I call it playing with movement.
I'm never not reading something about movement. My husband jokes that like I have more books than I have time to read ever.
You're one of those.
Yeah.
Dave and I have a rule. He cannot buy a new book till he's read one, and we got rid of it.
Yeah, that rule wouldn't work in my house. But I also used to work in publishing, so I value the written word. I'm not a Kindle person. I have to have the physical thing in my hand. I'm also a fan of a highlighter, and I'm sorry to those people who don't like the idea of highlighting things in books, but when I'm keeping a book, I'm not gonna, it's my book.
Do you write notes in it?
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah. I feel like, the people who, I don't know, ancient Egypt who would write stuff like on the pages, little notes and stuff that we see in archaeology. Yeah. Someone might see one of your books one day and be touched by the notes you've written, or it creates a memento of the person you were at the moment in time when you read it. I think it's beautiful. It's adding art to art. Yeah, absolutely. And also like, I'll read something and it'll link to something else. Yeah. But it's not in that book that it links to that other thing. So I'll make a little note on the side that it links to X, Y, and Z or whatever. And that's helpful for me because ultimately it's good to connect the dots. There's a lot of practitioners in various different disciplines who think their way is the only way. And ultimately that cannot be the case because our bodies are not all the same. So things that one person can be really good at, I can't be really good at just because of my physiology and just because I'm built differently. And that's perfectly fine. So there can't just be one correct way to move. Yeah. So I think it's really valuable to continue learning and learning from different disciplines. My husband is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Wow. So, movement has been a huge part of his life as well in a training capacity, and he teaches a little bit as well. So we're always nerding out over different movement disciplines and patterns and how they kind of intersect as well. And it's so fascinating and interesting. One of my clients, she's in her late 70s, said to me the other day, I know I say I hate it when you make me go down to the floor and get back up. But the other day I dropped something under the sideboard and I needed to get to the floor and get it out from under the sideboard. And I live by myself, so I have to be able to do this by myself. I cannot rely on somebody else to come over and help me get
whatever fell under the sideboard. You know, and when we can do certain things, we don't think about those things. But when I was at the height of my pain party, there were so many basic things I struggled with. Just getting off the floor, was really painful because my joints were inflamed and everything was aching, and even just getting out of bed was really hard. So I have a huge appreciation for anyone who finds themselves in a quote unquote deconditioned state, because maybe they never went to the gym ever, or maybe they used to go to the gym, but then, you know, work or family life or whatever took over, and all of a sudden they're finding themselves stuck in different positions or really struggling. And you kind of chuckled a little bit when you said 90 plus, but genuinely I have coached people in their 90s who fell and couldn't get up again. And if you are 90 something and you live by yourself and you fall, and nobody's coming over, you might, and I'm not being harsh here, you might die there.
It's true.
You know, and unfortunately there's way too many cases of that. So it's a simple case of making sure that I help as many people restore movement, whether it's because they haven't moved for a while or they've never really thought about movement until it was gone, or because they've discovered they're hypermobile and they can't do certain things anymore because it causes too much pain. Like for me,
Have you ever, just in your experience working with clients, have you ever found someone where you felt like, oh, it's too late for them to start, or they're too old? Yeah, same.
No.
People think they're like 90, 95, I don't know, 80, whatever. It's the musculoskeletal system. People think it shuts off. Like when you turn 30, there's this whole idea that like, oh, everything's done now. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's like saying the sun stops shining or whatever. It's just they are cells and they respond to certain stimuli. Yes, it becomes harder as we age or harder as we have certain health conditions, but they don't tend to become like wholly unresponsive. I think it's this big misconception. Something that I think you're a bit of a specialist in, if I can say so, is helping people find a place to start, because I think that's the single most important thing. And I think a lot of people listening to this will have concerns about, you know, like, what can I do or can't I do if I'm hypermobile? And again, that comes down ultimately to your medical doctor and the advice they've given you. But I do think there's a bit of a problem sometimes, because sometimes people in certain healthcare professions, my own included, they don't appreciate how many different ways there are to move.
Yeah.
And like I have referred patients to, you know, where they're starting from a very low level and they've been nervous, like literally nervous to come to even to walk into a gym space. Yeah. And I find that just knowing that there's someone who will get, like, I tell them, like, you know, Karima will get you.
Yeah.
Like she will get you. And you know what I tell them too? I say, like, you can tell her whatever you want. And she's fine with it. And then I tell them one other thing, which is I have shown up to Karima's classes. You know what I'm going to say? Yeah. I have shown up and Karima's like, Alex, how are you doing today? And I'm just like, bad. You'll just tell me, that's okay, babe. And you help me figure it out. Yeah. We go from there. Is there any like advice you have to people where they feel like they just don't know how to start, or they're nervous about taking that first step?
Well, the first thing I'll say is just talk to the person you're working with. Yeah. I think way too many people think that there's some kind of hierarchy here. Just because I'm a coach means I'm somehow above you somehow. But at the end of the day, the way I work with people is that we are a team. Yeah. And we're going to figure this out together. And whenever people ask me what I do for a living, you know, I'll say, like, I'm a longevity coach and a CrossFit coach. But ultimately, I create a safe space for people so that they can come in and feel safe to tell me when something hurts, tell me when they're not comfortable with something, tell me that they're scared to start again because the last time they started, they ended up in a bad place. So we I have every single person I start with, they come in initially for a movement assessment, but the movement assessment is so much more than that. It gives them an idea of who I am as well.
Yeah.
And there is such a thing as compatibility. Like, I have had an instance or two where I knew that somebody would be more compatible with someone else, where I just knew I wasn't the right fit for them. It's like speaking the same language, but one person speaks with a really thick accent. And you can't quite understand each other properly.
That's such a good description of it. I get it sometimes with patients. I'm not the perfect person for everybody. Nobody is.
Yeah. And in that instance, I have referred people to someone where I'm like, I know exactly who you need to work with. And I've referred them. And the instances where that has happened, it's been correct. And so I also think it's important to acknowledge that first. Like, I don't sell anyone a package. I don't go, you have to come in for 10 sessions. I just get them to come in once and meet me and talk to me. And through that movement assessment, I gauge an understanding of what it is that they've been struggling with. And they get an idea of who I am and how I work. Because, and quite a few of my clients will be able to tell you this, will do something like a movement or a little breathwork exercise or whatever, and then I go, okay, let that download. Let your body tell you how it has received that thing. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, how do you feel? And they're like, a bit lightheaded. I'm like, okay, let's breathe. So it's getting them to understand that they are their own best expert. Because no matter how long I train somebody for, I will never be able to hear that inner voice. And when people start working with me initially, sometimes they haven't paid attention to that voice in years. They don't even realize it's still there. So it's just about helping them create that awareness, and then teaching them how to move and still pay attention at the same time, then allowing something to sort of, I like the word download. I don't know why.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, feeling things is hard too, I'm going to say. And I find it's just an observation I'm going to make based off my patients. Maybe it'll resonate with you or not. I find there are two types of patients I see. The first type I'm going to talk about, they're the ones who like feel everything. They have a natural skill when it comes to listening to their bodies. I would describe you as that way. You're very, very sensitive to, I think, what you experience around you, and I'm sure you experience within yourself. There's the other group, which definitely is me. I've had to go on a big journey to get to where I am. Yeah. Bull in a china shop, like Labrador puppy, just carrying on with things, have pushed down those thoughts and feelings so much because they just are a ball of whatever they are, And it's really hard to find that type of balanced listening, which is, I think, where growth comes from. So I compare it to parenting. Not that I know anything about parenting, but I do have 2 cats. And it's really easy to be a kind of helicopter parent to your body, where you're almost doing that anxiety listening. And it's also easy to be neglectful. Yeah. And it's really hard to be in the middle.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I sometimes, the hypervigilance serves me, but sometimes doesn't as well, because I'm like, am I feeling, is it, or is it, I don't know. But like a recent case, about 6-7 months ago, I could just tell something was off, but I couldn't tell what it was because it was a new experience. And I just kept going, it's next to my ear. There's no pain, but something's there. And I'm like, is this my imagination? Am I actually feeling something? And am I thinking about it so much that I've made myself feel something? Because that's another thing. So it was like, am I being like hypervigilant? Is this a thing? But it didn't go away. And I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? So I ended up making an appointment with an ENT, and she did a test, and she was like, well, I don't know how you've been functioning. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She was like, your vestibular nerve is so inflamed that I'm surprised you can walk in a straight line.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, and it's the one on the right. And I kept going, something's happening here. But I'd been to the GP and she looked in my ear and she was like, I mean, we can't really see an inner ear infection and it doesn't really look like there is. And it wasn't really until I went to a private ENT and she confirmed, she was like, it is really bad. And I'm like, okay. So there is a bit of wrestling with that every now and again. But then if the feeling doesn't pass, getting a professional medical opinion is the next step.
Absolutely.
At least for me, and I think it should be, versus the other side. If you're more on the hypochondriac spectrum and you're like running to the GP for every single teeny tiny thing, obviously that can be an issue as well. But I think it's just about learning to trust yourself. And in that instance, I'm glad I did, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to deal with it. And yeah, it just makes you feel a bit crazy otherwise.
It's really hard. Like you talked about being that person, that special percentage of a percentage who has every single side effect from medication. And the reality is that is a lot of my patients. I have been that like 1 in 2 million person. Yeah. And it's so hard because like there's almost in a way good reason to get medical, you know, the best thing to do, if in doubt, please get a medical opinion. Okay, if you're worried about anything, please do that.
Yep.
But it can help sometimes to be able to take a breath or to have a healthcare professional you can talk with about that. So sometimes my patients will come to me, we'll talk about things and I'll say, look, give it 2 days or give it 1 day, because I can kind of give that type of perspective on certain issues within the scope of my professional capacity. But it's really hard to have to kind of triage your own feelings when you get weird feelings sometimes. Like I sometimes get peripheral nerve issues, like small fiber neuropathy is a technical term for it, but I'll feel like I've poured acid on my arm. So I was in my early 20s, like, why do I have a patch of skin that's burning? This makes no sense. There's nothing there. You know, I'm looking at it thinking I'm losing my mind. And I was, you know, I'd be very careful with what chemicals I used in the house and everything. And it would just go away as soon as it came. It would be there for a day and then go away. And I'll never forget, there was one time I was walking with my mom before she passed away in a mall, and it was one of the last times I ever got to go shopping with her. But there was this, it felt like this burning patch of skin on my thigh, and I would go to the loo, you know, or the bathroom toilet, and be looking for something on my skin, and there was nothing there. But it was so bad that I bought a new pair of jeans and had a borderline meltdown because it just felt like something was burrowing into my skin, and it was nothing. So it wasn't nothing. It was
I was going to say, it's not nothing.
See, that's an example where like this is hard and I still have ongoing.
No, like we become a bit dismissive, I think, as well. We're like, oh, well, that I did go to a health professional and they said it was nothing. And I'm like, okay, I'm a huge fan of getting a second opinion as well.
Yeah, or third.
Or third. No, absolutely. Because like even with my diagnoses, even though he gave me the facts as they were, he also, I realized now, and I realized then low level, but it's much clearer now that he gave me all the preconception he had about the condition. So like all the things that could potentially happen, all the worst case scenarios, he put them on the table. And it wasn't really until I went to see a different endocrinologist and I showed him my paperwork and stuff, and then I started talking about what that first doctor told me that would happen to me, and he's like, no. That is like, in some rare cases this could happen, but I made that part of the diagnosis and part of the truth. Whereas essentially the guy's bedside manner just wasn't sensitive to the fact that this was quite stressful for me, and he just put all the worst case scenarios on the table and made them my new truth. And it wasn't really until I went and saw somebody else who was like, no. That's a worst case scenario, and that doesn't happen to most people. Yes, sure, it can happen, but you're already managing your situation really well, so it's unlikely to happen.
I have to say I find healthcare weird in the sense that we have an expert on one side of the table, the healthcare provider, the medical doctor, whatever. We have the patient on the other. And, you know, Dave is a lawyer. So I've gone and had some exposure to the legal industry and how it works a bit through that. And like, if I was dealing with a legal issue, I would never not have representation from an expert to communicate with the other, you know, person about the issue. But in healthcare settings, we have one expert, one non-expert,
Yeah.
and we're relying on the expert to say things in a way which is, clear and correct and, which the patient understands.
Yep.
And so many things like your experience happen because of that power imbalance, I think.
Yeah. I mean, my youngest sister is at med school and she does various internships, and she's starting to notice that she's also very sensitive and very empathetic to people. And she's noticing where health care providers aren't noting the patient's emotional state of mind before giving them a quote unquote bit of bad news or a diagnosis that may be a little bit of a struggle. And she was saying, she's like, well, how am I going to deal with this? And I'm like, you are noticing it. That's amazing. And you're going to be a doctor. So you will be that doctor who will have that level of empathy. And she hasn't had like loads of experiences. I make it sound really terrible, but she has had one or two experiences where she's just noticed that they just delivered the news without first kind of sort of sensing the patient's state of mind. I mean, it was, in one case, she said they didn't ask the patient to sit down first before they told them that there was a bad diagnosis. So it's just little things like that where you're like, if you're gonna get some bad news, which, I mean, you might faint, who knows, these things happen. But if you're sat down, that's just a better space to be if you're going to be given that kind of information. And I think I get it as well, because my dad was a surgeon. You're going through so many people on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, and it can be such a tough job that you do have to compartmentalize some of your own feelings very often. But I think this is why when you were saying getting a third opinion as well, it's just like just finding the right health professional for you that can give you the care that you need is important.
No, absolutely. Your story where you tried the CrossFit classes, didn't have that good experience. Then I can't remember why you tried again or why did you go back and try again?
I just had a feeling. Because the first time I tried, it was like an intro session with somebody, and he was just, I don't know, terrible bedside manner, and he made me feel very uncomfortable. And I just felt really off about the whole thing. And then within the 18 months, I kind of thought about it more and more, and I thought it's a him thing, not a CrossFit thing. So it was just like, he just made me feel really uncomfortable. It wasn't that CrossFit made me feel really uncomfortable. Which is why I sought out a different gym and obviously different people and different coaches. And I was really, really fortunate. But yeah, it's I just knew that I wanted to try again.
Had some reflection and were able to tease that out. No, I've told the story before. When I was 17, I saw a physiotherapist, and they told me I'd have to live with wrist pain that I'd had since I was 11 for the rest of my life. I was sleeping in a brace at night. So I fractured my wrist and then had pain, and they were just like, here's your brace, get out, live your life. Then they just left me to deal with arthritis from the tender age of 11. And I saw a physiotherapist, did nothing, ended up seeing another healthcare provider. The person happened to be an osteopath, but they did improve my symptoms. And it was only through pure like serendipity, just by chance, because I had been so let down, and I'd done the thing. I had done the patient thing you're supposed to do when you have muscle and joint pain, which is I saw the appropriate healthcare professional, and then it didn't go well. And I was just like, this is stupid. I'd rather just be in pain and spend my money on like chocolate or shoes or anything else.
Chocolate or shoes.
You know what to get me for Christmas.
I was just gonna say.
But for me, as a person who's had some years now and some life, like when we redid our kitchen recently, and we got like 5 opinions before doing the kitchen. And for me, I love my body more than I love my kitchen. So I think that for me has just really highlighted the kind of lack of sense, I guess you would say, towards how people treat their health, which is often people will do what I did, just get one opinion and understandably give up.
That's gospel.
Yeah, versus like, oh, you're looking for a kitchen, or you're looking for an accountant. Did you get 3 opinions? Did you get 5 opinions? Like, we need to normalize getting more opinions about healthcare. And I know it's hard. I know in public healthcare systems, it's not possible. And I get that always. But it's something that I hope people can just take away from this, because you wouldn't be here as well as you are today, if I can say that, if you didn't go back.
You know? No. I mean, I always think maybe I would have found it a different way, but ultimately we will never know, because we can't. But the journey has definitely been the thing that caused all the positive changes in the end. Like, I would not wish for a different body. I would not wish not to be hypermobile. I would not wish not to have had the diagnoses, because it taught me so much, not just about myself and my body, but also how other people might feel within themselves. And when somebody comes to me and says, I'm in a lot of pain, I am there, I get it. And that is why I'm so passionate about what I do as well, because I'm not coming at this from oh yeah, I can kind of imagine. It's I've been there.
Yeah.
I've absolutely been there. And, when I'm being a bit stupid and I'm not paying attention to my stress levels, or I just load myself with too many things, or I'm not paying attention to the voice.
Oh no.
I find myself in a bad place, and I think, no, we do not want to be here.
Yep.
But I think context is important. So it is with I suppose it's the same thing as when you think about what you needed when you were a child. Finding ways to give yourself the thing that you didn't get as a child. Yeah. It's the same sort of thing, where when people come to me, I'm like, what is it that I didn't get from the people that I sought out for help?
Yeah.
That I can now give people that are in a similar position, or that are also in a state of discomfort and pain. How can I create the thing that I needed? And I think therein lies the unique position in having gone through these awful experiences, quote unquote awful, because ultimately they led me to changing careers and, going in a very different direction, and just working with so many wonderful people like you and, all my clients. And it's just, when I talk to somebody who says, I was finally able to pick up my granddaughter, there was no way I could have done that before. I mean, that's just, it's just like.
Do you cry happy tears sometimes? I'm going to be honest.
All the time.
There's a rule in my clinic office. Every day, one person is crying. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes it's a patient being sad. Sometimes it's a patient being happy.
Yeah.
To be clear, they're usually not sad with me. They're sad about what they've come in for. But no, that the happy tears feeling of you've helped someone do something which is just so integral to their existence, what matters most to them, what's nearest and dearest to them. I have to say as well, because you talked about kind of being in that space and getting what it's like to be at the bottom. I think there are a lot of people in this field who are hypermobile and who maybe get it from their perspective, but I think what makes a true expert, and I would call you that, I think you're amazing.
Thank you.
But it's your ability to get where people are at, but also allow them to have their own experience without imposing your experience on them. Have I said that clearly?
Yeah.
Because it's a hard skill to do, because I'm tempted. When I see patients, sometimes I'm like, they should be feeling this in a way. I'll almost have that little voice where I'm expecting something to happen and they tell me something completely different. Yeah. To this day, I'm still surprised by what I see in clinic. And I'm just like, Alex, we shall not impose our experience on others. We must receive what they are bringing to the table.
Well, I asked so many questions in my sessions.
Always.
I mean, how did this feel? Did it feel like this? No? Okay. How did it feel? I'm constantly asking what people are feeling. And they look at me and I'm like, yes, I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, listen, this isn't for you. This is for me. No. So so I don't make assumptions about what you may be feeling based on my experience when I learned how to do this movement, or when I learned how to, understand how important breathing is in movement and that kind of thing. So it's I don't want to assume to know how you are feeling. and I come back to this every single time. It doesn't matter how long I train you. You are the one who will sense something before I can tell. You know, it's like you're moving and it looks perfect to me. And then you go, oh yeah, my knee really hurt doing that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why didn't you stop or tell me? And they're like, oh, I just pushed through it. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's talk about this. So it's, you know, so I completely agree and understand what you're saying. I don't want to put my lens on their experience because they may be similar. But at the end of the day, as I was saying, we're all different and unique, and we have things that we have in common that we share, but we are still our own individual, you know, living, breathing bodies. So.
Absolutely. No, and the question thing, I was going to mention that at some point, but no, you ask so many questions. And initially it did bother me a bit because I'm like, Karima, just tell me what to do. I do not want to have to think. I do not want to have to answer your questions. But I have to say, it helps. It is I always grow. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. Karima, you've told me that you're doing a Move Along With Me program for 75 plus.
75 plus, yeah.
Can people do it if they're under 75?
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. Because I have a lot of patients in their 20s and 30s, and some of them have different health issues and don't know where to start. And a lot of times the best fitness stuff out there is the stuff that's targeted, 60 plus. It focuses on listening to your body.
Yeah. Well, my programs are generally called armored. So you armor yourself for life. My main program is called Armored for Aging, and that can be for anybody. I mean, you don't have to be 65. I won't show you the door. And I initially started it as an online program, and then I realized actually I don't want to be removed from people, but I can't be coaching everybody who wants to coach, especially since a lot of my clients don't live in the same country.
Yeah.
So I do work with people online, and a lot of people who've worked with me for a while, I program for them, and we check in once a week, and I make sure that they get what they need. But I have noticed in some of my clients who used to do Zoom sessions with me in lockdown, because of the time difference, there's just no way that we can Zoom all the time or at a time that is appropriate for them and for me, because it might be in the middle of the night for me. So I'm launching a follow-along program. So it's videos of me doing the workout. And you're just following along, and you can pause it if you need to. And we're just in the creation process at the moment, but it's minimal clickage as well. You click on the link, you answer 4 questions about pain and energy levels, and then you get guided to the appropriate selection of videos. So that, for example, sitting and standing, do you feel like you can sit and stand without assistance today? No. Okay. Then you're guided to an assisted video so that it has sitting and standing in it, but I'm using something to support myself, and I'm showing you how to support yourself. And I talk about breathing, and it is completely guided by me so that you feel like I'm there with you.
I love that. And I love how it picks up on the dynamic aspect too, because a lot of people who are hypermobile, and you've seen me be this way, I'll come to the gym, be able to do lots of sporty things and be pretty fit. And then another day I will come in and say, Karima, I'm not feeling it today. And so that dynamic aspect, even though, again, I know you're doing that for people in that specific age demographic, it's so applicable to being hypermobile, because people will have almost like chaotic bodies where you don't know what you're going to get on a given day, and it can be hard to predict. Yeah. So I love that. I've got to ask one more question, then we'll wrap up, because I know we've kept you here and I know you're busy. But do you coach in different languages? Because I feel like you speak 5 languages for some reason.
I speak 3.
Okay. It's 2 more than me.
2 fluently, 1 a little bit broken, because I am Syrian, so I do speak Arabic. I just don't speak Arabic often enough that it's still fluent. So it can be a little bit broken but yeah, I do speak Arabic, but even my dad used to speak to us in German, so it's like, this is not helpful. But yeah, I do coach in German a little bit as well, and like I coach my mother, and she speaks to me in English, and I speak to her in German. So it's and I have a couple of clients I coach in German as well. So it's just weird when I'm like looking for the word in German that I have never had to use because I left Germany when I was 10. And then I'm like fishing for the movement pattern word in German. And I'm like, I just gonna say it in English because I don't know what it is in German.
Oh man, that's too funny. No, I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Karima, today. I really, really appreciate it. And it's just been so healing in a sense, you know, to be able to just connect on all these things that we've kind of gone through together and in our own ways. And, you know, I'm so grateful that you are here. And I know.
Thank you so much.
And I know my patients who I've referred to are happy and grateful as well. And I have to say that continuity of care, last thing I'm going to touch on, continuity of care is critical. The fact that I can refer to someone who can talk to me and the patient. You mentioned teamwork earlier. It is, I think, the single most important thing in making a treatment plan or strategy work. So
I will always say to my clients, if you're being seen by a physio or an osteo or any other kind of health professional, give them my details. Ultimately, we are your team to make sure that you can do the things that you want to do. Yeah. It's all well and good if they go and have a good experience with them, i.e. you, and then have a good experience with me. But if there's something that you notice about somebody that I need to know, but the patient might not know to share, then I won't know. So I have had contact with lots of other health professionals where it's like, oh yeah, I saw so-and-so and they really need to pay attention not to do this, because also sometimes they don't want to tell me because they just want to do the workout.
They just want to get on.
Yeah. And I get that, but ultimately that's the thing, to make sure that they can still do the thing in 2 years' time and 5 years' time and 10 years' time, because the average 30-something doesn't think about their 65-year-old self. Yeah. But I do.
Or 50 years time, you know.
Listen, I just pulled that number out of the air, so, you know.
And good personal trainers, good coaches, good osteos, physios, chiropractors, whatever, healthcare providers of various kinds, they will make the time to connect to people. I am deeply invested in my patients' outcomes. You're deeply invested in your clients' outcomes. They will connect, because patients are always surprised that I do this, and they're like, oh, you know, are you okay with this? Do you have time? And I'm like, yes, because I care deeply about your clinical outcome. So again, it's wonderful to be able to work with you in that way.
I love that.
Karima, last question. If you could turn back time or, you know, teleport to the past and tell yourself something when you were at your lowest, what would you want yourself to know?
Just trust yourself. Because like I knew there was a way out. I just couldn't see it, but I knew it wasn't, like that wasn't the end. You know, the pain bubble wasn't where it was going to end. Because I'd read lots of I read a lot, but I'd read about, you know, when people experience a quote unquote rupture in their life, oftentimes that is one of the most significant periods of growth. And at the time, and if anybody, even myself from the future, had said that to me, I would have thrown them out the window. But it's true. It often is. So I wouldn't say anything more than just trust yourself. It's going to be okay.
No.
So yeah.
No, I love that. I feel like you'd say trust yourself and maybe give yourself a hug.
Yeah, be kind to yourself for sure. Yeah.
Karima, thank you again for your time today.
Thanks, Alex.
I hope to be able to have you back in future, and I'm sure I'll see you sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.